Before we begin, please note that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical or mental health care. If you are in crisis, please seek support from a licensed provider or emergency services in your area. If you are interested in further self-reflection, we invite you to go to our website www.unapologeticallyreborn.com and download the free workbook that correlates with this episode.
Hi, welcome to Unapologetically Reborn. I'm Alicia Lynch.
And I'm the handsome one called Cody.
So we're on, I'd say, our fourth episode?
Yep.
Not including our intro. Yeah. And I just wanted to touch base real quick. It seems like we're doing okay. I would like to thank the people that...
subscribed.
Yeah, the people that are listening. Thank you very much for viewing our material. I also know that these topics that we're starting off with can be relatively boring.
That's why you see me on at times.
But I promise they'll get more interesting. This is just kind of like the base on where we need to focus and where we start, which, to be honest, it can be kind of lame.
It does get a little boring, but you have to move forward if you want to advance to the stuff that's not boring.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where we are, and we would really appreciate if you would consider subscribing to our channel and our show and listening to us on a regular basis, because it will get more interesting. We just have to get through the first couple of episodes, the first couple of weeks, to lie down the foundation before we can get into other things.
And I know we're still new and all that, but it'd be great if you can help us like we're trying to help you.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought about doing a podcast in my life. Like, I used to listen to them. I still listen to a few of them, but I used to listen to them, and they were great, especially when I worked nights. But I never actually thought about hosting one.
Yeah.
And
I'd be too nervous at the time.
That too. But basically, for me, this is a platform to not only get the opportunity to learn myself, learn things about myself as well, but it's not to try to portray like you know everything or anything like this. It's just that the years that I've conducted research on things and tried to get myself out of dysregulation and stuff like that, because I tried a couple different psychologists and I really didn't have, I'm not banging on them. I'm not saying that they're bad, but just like with any profession, there are some that aren't that great. And for me, what I found in my journey was I would go in and being fairly emotionally intelligent, they would say something and I would know those things already. And it was like we could never move past, well, this is this, or, this is that, or, and so here I'm like waiting, am I nuts? Am I crazy? Like, what's my diagnosis? And, it would always come back to where, no, I have CPTSD and I have PTSD, from trauma in my life and anxiety and things like that. But it was never, I had any mental illness or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, well then what is the issue? And then I wasn't going to talk about this, but I did, the last one that I went to, I went to talk to somebody about, basically, my husband got sick, and, I went to discuss that. We were at the beginning of, because I studied the brain and stuff like that, I kind of felt like he might have this disorder, and unfortunately it turned out to be true, and I was having a hard time with that, and even part of me felt guilty. It was almost like, oh, it's my fault. I said it and then it happened. You know what I mean? And if I would have never said it or thought it, then maybe it wouldn't have happened, as ridiculous as that sounds. But basically what I'm trying to say is there was a point when I was in nursing school, and I had to pull out. I couldn't afford the tuition anymore. So in a nutshell, I went to college to be a health administrator, and I finished my bachelor's, and I didn't want to put any more money into a master's because it didn't get me anywhere, and I was afraid of that. So I was told if I got my RN, that would help. So I was working on my RN, and then I had to quit because between the living expenses and then my husband got sick, and it took like a year, for his stuff to get together, and he couldn't work and stuff like that at the time. And I went through this like tremendous guilt, and like I caused this because, I saw the signs or what have you. And then when I was telling the last person that I went to, when I was telling her how I felt, and it was the first time that I'd had hope in like over a decade, after the loss of my child. It was the first time that I couldn't do anything. I lost all my, my hopes, my dreams, whatever. And I started to have a little bit of hope with going back to school and trying to establish a new identity, so to speak. And she looks at me and she goes, Alicia, I don't think you should have any hope.
What a nice lady. Coming from a shrink.
Yeah, and I sat there, and I was just like,
good 5 stars not to have.
That I just hallucinate? Like, did you just actually tell me like I shouldn't have any hope?
No disrespect to other psychiatrists or psychologists.
Psychologists.
Yeah. Whatever one. Great thing to say to someone who has those type of, having those issues. And I'm not saying we're psychologists or shrinks, it's just to talk to somebody about your problems. There are some people who are scared to talk to a psychiatrist or psychologist. And we're not going to do the woe's me, not the little violin, feel sorry for us. We're not that type of podcast. We all go through different things.
Right.
So, if you want to enjoy what we say, if you want to learn things, if you want me to try not to be a smart aleck, that's just my personality. So, the host with the most.
Yeah, thanks. Not really. But anyway, I sat there and I was just like, did I just hallucinate? Did she really just say that? And that really threw me for a loop, because it was like, wow, you just reiterated how like shitty my life is. And, if I didn't have kids and if I didn't have a family and I was, a little worse off than I had felt, I might have just, so basically the message that I got, not to be derogatory, but the message that I got was just like, okay, so I shouldn't have hope. I shouldn't think that anything good's ever going to happen. So what do? Do I go home and shoot myself in the head? Like, what's the solution? I came to you for a solution. And obviously there was none. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, the people that I had spoken to in my past, we never would get to a solution. It would always be, kind of like what I'm doing. Well, this is da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but what is the solution? How do we move forward? How do we move past this? So basically this podcast for me is like it's the foundation for trying to educate you in what I've learned and in my research, and sharing that to help other people. Because, when we're off the street and we're not, psychologists and a lot of people don't like neuroscience. I mean, that's my favorite subject, and I can get a little carried away with that. But like, most people don't have the language. You don't have the terminology. You don't have the wording. So you don't even know where to begin or where to start. So for me, this is also a platform to learn that. And that's why we're starting from, we're systematically where we're trying to build up. And some of you may already be familiar and know these topics. Some of you may be, learning these things and have never heard this stuff before.
For someone like me, who when a doctor speaks to you, you hear wah, 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 like from Charlie Brown.
And that's how I feel I'm presenting myself. And I don't mean it to be that way. I'm trying to, take like complicated subjects and trying to make them a little bit easier to understand. And then other people can conduct their research, should you want to research that. And then, you learn more about yourself. But now you have the wording, you have the terminology, you kind of have like a foundation of where to begin and where to start. Because honestly, I will tell you, the money that I spent on researching for myself has been worth more than the money that I spent on the therapy. Now, I'm not saying that therapy is a bad thing, and I'm not telling you not to go there, because there are amazing psychologists out there. I just myself never really seemed to get there. And then I started like, since I internalized, we'll get to that eventually on our episode, but since I internalized and, like, is it something that I did? Is it the way that I speak? Did I not do this right? Did I not do that right? Are my expectations too high? Am I asking for too much? Like, and after analyzing all of that, no, it's not. It wasn't something that I did or did not say, or first off, that was extremely unprofessional. It should have never ever happened. But unfortunately, we can't, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is therapy is great. If you can find the right psychologist, great. I highly recommend going to therapy. Hopefully you have better experiences than I did. But rule of thumb is, this is you. And even though it may not feel like it, you know yourself better than anybody else. It may not feel that way, but you do. And, the other thing is, not to get on my soapbox, but advocate for yourself. You have to learn how to advocate for yourself, because the bottom line is, some of these people, not all of them, there are people that actually have, some experience, but some of these people they don't know. They read a book. I'm not bagging on people. Again, I'm not bagging on psychologists. I don't mean it to come off that way. But some of those people don't have the life experiences that you've lived, okay? And so you can stand here all day with your little standard textbook behavior, and you can learn things that way. However, there's only so much a book can teach you. If you've lived it, it's a whole different enterprise. So I just wanted to touch base. Sorry to take so long with that. And just say, I appreciate you coming and, sitting with us in your time. And please continue to, subscribe to us, watch us. We will get better. This is only our 4th episode, but things are going fairly well. And if there's anything, like a topic that you want to discuss or talk about or you're curious about, I would really, appreciate if you would email us. You can email us or call us.
YouTube it if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, all of our information can be found on unapologeticallyreborn.com. And we have a phone number, we have an email. Get in touch with us, let us know what you'd like to discuss. Or if you have any questions. But I have taken too much time, so we better get going here.
Yeah, it'll be fine. They'll get it eventually.
Have you ever felt like there's 2 different versions of you?
Yeah, at times.
Me too. There's the one who shows up for work, pays the bills, and speaks logically. And then there's the version that suddenly takes over when you're triggered, leaving you feeling like a terrified child or a ball of blind rage.
I'm more of the blind rage part.
Are you?
When it comes to doctors, they would not love to see the blind rage.
I don't see that in you.
Oh, I do.
I don't. I mean, I see the frustration and I see the anger, but I don't see the rage. I mean,
I can paint a pretty picture if you know what I mean. So, not all people are like that. I'm just one of those people who can keep it in very well.
Well, keeping it in isn't healthy either, but do you want to talk about it?
No.
Would you feel free to share it?
No.
You don't want to talk about it?
No.
Okay. All right, well, I feel comfortable talking about it. Again, I always feel guilty when I talk about myself, but I don't know who else to use besides me, because you can't get in trouble for that.
True. Keep on going.
No, you cut in at any point. If you feel like sharing your experience, that would be great.
Believe me, my experience, I've dealt with it for too long.
Like I said, if you feel like sharing it, that would be great. So you cut in at any point. You let me know what you feel comfortable with. I thought I had a pen over here, but apparently I don't. So, rage. Rage is not the topic today, but yeah, blind rage is scary. I mean, it wasn't something that I experienced until, fragmentation is what we're going to discuss, and that's real close to my heart. But rage is scary. Like, I grew up I was taught, my mother always taught me, you don't mess with people that don't have anything. When they lost everything, those are the people that you don't fuck with, because they don't care. They don't have anything. They don't give a shit. So, like, that's why a lot of people end up in jail, because you did something, you crossed the line. I'm not saying everybody in jail, that rightfully so. But something may have happened to somebody in that case, and they lost their shit, and they didn't have anything I don't have anything to lose. And so I was always taught those are the people that, to be afraid of, because they will fuck you up, because they don't give a shit. They don't have anything to lose. And that makes perfect sense to me. But what scared me was, in my family, God, I hate to bang on my family, but basically in my family, it was, if you didn't like a situation, or you didn't agree with something, or somebody pissed you off, my entire, upbringing was you hit them. You hit people, and that was your basis of control. And I mean, growing up around domestic violence and everything like that, it was always you hit them. So my first initial reaction to anything when somebody deeply makes me angry is to hit them. And I mean deeply. Like, not my kids, things like that. Not petty shit. But I mean, like, somebody embarrasses you at work, or somebody talks shit about, something that's important to you, or even, and even those things sound petty now that I hear myself. But situations like that, the first thing to go through my head is to hit them. And, I have to coach myself. That's not okay. You can't do that. I am not 20 anymore. I just turned 15.
Man, the elderly get delusional.
Yes, we do. I just turned 15.
In your head, maybe.
So I can't behave in that manner, but I have to coach myself. You can't carry on like that. But deep in my head, the little 12-year-old little ghetto girl is like, you know what? That's it. It's on. And I wasn't that way. My point is this. I was not that way growing up as a kid. I was very composed. My mother was a fighter. And, I'm not going to get into detail, but, she literally was a fighter.
At least yours was a fighter. My father was a complainer. Constantly. Complainer.
Well, my mother...
About everything. For a man who makes a lot of money, I know I shouldn't bag on the guy, but he complains more than a damn pregnant woman. Ooh. No offense to pregnant ladies. But my lord, you can do everything perfect, he would still find something to complain about. Sports, the Vikings, of course, they lose. Oh my God, it's like God has struck him down. I know as a sports fan, but the man complains about everything. For a man who has money, Jesus, he complains a lot.
Yeah?
Yes. And I'm not trying to be mean, but truth. Very truthful.
Well, my mother used to embarrass the shit out of me. Parking lots. Like, you go to park, somebody jumps in front of you. My mom my mom's passed, so I don't mean to disrespect her. And it's kind of funny now, but at the time it was humiliating. My mom was the mom that would jump out the car and like straight up freak the fuck out on whomever did it. Or like, I remember one time, just a couple examples, like somebody, I wasn't home, I was at my dad's house, but somebody came over, a couple of girls came over in junior high or whatever, and they were gonna whoop my sister's ass or jump her or whatever they were planning on doing, intimidating her in some way. My mom chased them with a fucking crowbar. Yeah. Like, and my mom's been in trouble for like busting people in the face with like a Coke bottle. You know, back in the day, pop was in a bottle. Boom. Like,
that sounds like her.
So this is what I saw. This was what I watched. And then there was the domestic violence on top of it. So my point is, after I lost my son, which I can't get too much into because I'll lose my shit. But after that happened to me, and all of the things that I didn't deal with as a child, because my role was, be strong, take care of what needs to be, taken care of. Feelings you don't really deal with feelings because you don't want to be a puss, you don't want to be a baby or whatever. Or for me, it was, I would be a drama queen. Oh, you're a drama queen. You're just being, you're going into, my mom would always say, oh, you're going to dramatics. And I got so tired of that shit that I just basically, anytime I had a feeling or a thought or whatever, I tried to cut it off. So when my son went to heaven, I couldn't lose my shit, like physically as badly as I wanted to. But, and I tried to keep it together because, I still had my 3 other kids in my family. But at the same time, the fear that the things that I went through, and I'm actually very proud of myself because I handled it really, really well from where I come from and from what I was taught. Like somebody would get jazzy with me, especially women at work. We'll have an episode on women. Not to bag on women, but women can be catty, they're mean. Anyway, there was a couple times where, like in an instant, I remember one specific woman, I won't mention her name, but there's one time I went to bust her in her face, and lucky for her, she ran across the street. And I'm not making excuses, I'm just being real. We all have the tendency to go here. And what scared me was if I got into a confrontation with someone, it wasn't ever, like back in the day, I maybe would have been scared of the person. But at this point, there was no fear. Because for me, my worst fear already happened. My biggest nightmare happened. I lost my baby. There ain't a fucking thing that you can do to scare me. Because my biggest fear happened. It occurred. It was real. I didn't come back from that. And so when somebody tried to there's a specific person I'm thinking of that pulled a lot of shit, went over a lot of boundaries, especially with my children.
Oh, I know that one.
And I'm not going to lie to you. Like my first initial, what I had to coach myself through years and years, because I had to deal with this person on a regular basis. But what always went through my head is, I'm going to fuck you up. And the scary part is, when I fuck you up, it's going to be worth my jail time. I will fuck you up to where every day you look in the mirror, you're going to remember me, because it's going to be worth what I went through. And then the scary part is, discussing rage, the scary part is, you're not scared of whomever you're facing. You're scared of you. Mm-hmm. Because you don't know what you're capable of, the damage that you can do. And then speaking of fragmentation, here's where that comes in with rage for me. Then there's the side that, oh my God, I could actually hurt somebody like that. I watched my entire life women be beat and things like this. Why would I want to contribute to that? That's terrible. So then there was the guilt in that. And fragmentation can often feel that way, where it's, you can have two different feelings on the same subject. So anyways, pardon me for my truthfulness and my honesty, but we're not going to get anywhere if we blow smoke up your ass.
Pretty much.
We're here to be real, and we're here to discuss things that aren't always fun. And my audience is the people that they want to get better. They want to learn things. They're not, Karens that are worried about how we're going to look on the other side of the fence. Fuck all that. We're not here to do that. We're here to talk about real, actual shit that other people are afraid to talk about because they're scared of judgment. And that's fine.
We have the balls what no one else will talk about. There's other psychology podcasts who will say things that you want to hear. That's not us. We're honest.
Right.
And if you don't like honesty,
this is not
for you.
Please for you.
If you
right.
want to be real, that's what we are.
Yep. That's the goal in this, because you can paint it any color you like, but until you tape it, trim it, sand it, do the real shit that needs to be done underneath the interior, it's always going to be screwed up. It'll never be what you want it to be. So you have to start with the truth, and the truth is brutal and it's ugly and it sucks sometimes. But that's our platform, and that's our audience, is the people that want to dive into what's what. So
I'll continue.
We're going to talk about fragmentation, which I just kind of did. And like I said, I apologize if it seems like I'm aggressive. There's going to be people that are going to judge me. Either I teach things and I think I know everything, or if I don't say much, then I'm a Karen and I'm a puss. If I do say things and I'm truthful, then I'm negative and I'm aggressive and whatever. And you know what? This is nothing I haven't heard before. There's people that I've never met before who would talk shit to my kids and tell my kids that I was, how was that worded? I was aggressive. I was hostile.
You have violent tendencies.
Violent tendencies. That's it. Yep.
Tell
it
to another person who you don't know, they're going to tell you off.
I highly doubt that person is watching this show, but if they are, you're fucking right, I do, because everybody does. I'm just being real, truthful. So anyways, sorry about that. We're going to talk about why your brain shattered identity into pieces. This is fragmentation, just to help you survive. Why you can't truly integrate those pieces until you master the art of regulation first.
Look, we're already 27 minutes in.
Hey, that's okay. Hey. That's okay. You're not broken. You're partitioned. Let's talk about how we come back together. Fragmentation is what happens when different parts of you develop in different environments, under different levels of safety. When the nervous system is overwhelmed repeatedly, especially in developmental years, it doesn't just create stress, it creates compartments. Fragmentation refers to the separation of aspects of experience, emotional, cognitive, behavioral, or identity-based that would otherwise be integrated, into a cohesive sense of self. Different emotional states become separated because it would have been too overwhelming to feel all of these things at one time. When the nervous system cannot fully process an experience, it stores it into pieces in a state-dependent memory. So different emotional states get activated in different situations. Fragmentation feels like inconsistency, but it's actually state-based identity. It may feel this way, but it's very important to know you are not inconsistent. You're actually activated differently in different nervous system states. This is why it's possible to feel confident at work, but small in relationships. Intellectually understand something, but emotionally react differently. That's kind of what I talked about with my story of I want to bust this bitch in the nose, but oh, can I really hurt somebody like that? I feel bad that I even had that thought. Disappear in conflict, but feel strong everywhere else. Fragmentation is state-dependent organization of the self, a survival-based compartmentalization strategy, a nervous system response to overwhelm. Fragmentation exists on a spectrum. You do not need CPTSD to experience self-fragmentation. So CPTSD is a diagnosis, and it stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It can develop from long-term trauma, and sometimes it stems from traumatic events in childhood. We're going to get into different types of trauma in this podcast, so I don't want to focus too much on the diagnosis at this time. We'll do a podcast on CPTSD alone, as this podcast is mainly devoted to complex trauma. But before we start discussing diagnoses and other parts involved in our discussions, I feel we need to fully understand what's happening with an emotional dysregulation so we can focus on getting out of it. Some ways fragmentation can include not feeling like the same person in different situations, understanding something logically but reacting differently, desiring something like a relationship but shutting down and being afraid to get close, feeling blank in conflict, achieving something but not feeling very accomplished after doing so. So this equation is made up of emotional inconsistency, internal conflict, competing desires, feeling like parts of you are younger. This is state-dependent memory. There are different degrees of fragmentation. Sometimes it's just one protective self and one emotional self. Other times, multiple survival states become more distinct, but it's all the nervous system organizing around safety. In order for this to make sense, we need to not only look at the psychology aspect of it, but we need to go deeper. Let's look at the physiology beneath it. The nervous system, the biggest focus for the nervous system is to keep you alive. It maintains coherence and function. It does this by rebuilding physical systems or reorganizing mental and emotional processes. But how does it decide which way to go? It makes these decisions based upon the context of need. It evaluates the type and the urgency. However, the process changes with trauma. So in a regulated nervous system, the body can move fluidly between states. For an example, from fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system, to rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system. And then it returns to baseline of calm after stress. Now, in a dysregulated nervous system, the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic activity is disrupted. So the system may stay in a heightened state. You may stay in fight or flight, or a shutdown state, freeze and fawn for prolonged periods, even without immediate threat, because your brain is processed to where it's not understanding that what occurred happened in the past. It's time to move forward now. It's stuck and it can't shift gears. So let's go. Be ready. So,
yeah, this is the same page.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's awesome. So, if the body remains in the heightened activation, emotional shutdown, hypervigilance, or collapse, even with like immediate threat, over time, if different survival states are activated in different environments, those states can start to feel like different versions of you. That's fragmentation. It's not shattered identity. It's organized survival. So the good news, you're not screwed in the head. This is normal stuff. It sucks, and we need to get rid of it because it's not healthy, but you're not mentally ill if you have it. You have an old brain and you have a high brain. Now we're going to get into a little neuroscience because I like to understand why things happen. The old brain is your survival system. It reacts fast and it protects you. The high brain is your thinking system. It reflects, it plans, and it regulates. Now, in trauma, the old brain can become overly sensitive and the high brain can go offline under stress. That's why you may react before you can even think or process what happened.
Yep, that's old high brain is me. I can admit it.
That's everybody.
Yeah, but at times I can think, but I react before I can. Before I think, I react first. Well, I know that's an issue, but at times I see red and that all that goes out the window. But we're not on rage yet.
No, we discussed rage. Go ahead, continue.
Go on about my high brain before my old brain gets really annoyed.
All right. Well, fragmentation happens when different survival states get activated. We discussed that without being fully integrated by the high brain. So as trauma researcher, one of my favorites, Bessel van der Kolk, explains, the brain's primary job is survival. It constantly generates signals about what the body needs. Then it creates a map to how to meet those needs. And then it mobilizes the energy to take action to have those needs met. So when those internal state signals stop working properly, and when the map no longer leads us to safety, psychological problems begin to emerge. Inside of the old brain is the brainstem, the limbic system, especially the amygdala. Basic autonomic regulation. So it manages like your heart rate, your breathing, threat detection, fight, flight, freeze responses, emotional reactivity. It moves fast because its primary job is to keep you alive. It reacts automatically. It does not care about nuance. If something feels threatening, it mobilizes before you can think. This is why you can find yourself reacting to something before you even fully understand what you're reacting to, and later think, I shouldn't have reacted that way, or I overreacted and now I'm embarrassed. The high brain carries the prefrontal cortex and higher cortical regions. This is the part responsible for like logic, planning, reflection, emotional regulation, perspective talking, identity, coercion, and it moves more slow, so it's more rational. It evaluates context. It asks, is this dangerous? Is it actually dangerous? And it integrates. So in a healthy, flexible nervous system, the old brain detects signal. The high brain evaluates context. If safe, the high brain calms the old brain. System returns to baseline. That's called regulation. In trauma or chronic stress, the old brain becomes more sensitive. This alarm goes off faster. That's what I'm saying about being ready. We're ready to go. We're ready to fight. We're in that state. The high brain gets inhibited under stress. So the order becomes the old brain activates, the body shifts into survival, the high brain goes partially offline, the reaction happens first, and then the explanation comes later. So basically what I'm saying is, okay, you triggered me in some way, you pissed me off, so my old brain is activated. You hit a nerve. My body shifts into survival. So my survival is fight. So I smack you. Okay?
Ow. Hurtful.
Now my high brain is partially offline, like my rationale is gone. So I smack you. That's the reaction. Then after I hit you, the explanation comes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done what I did. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That's how that works, if that makes any sense.
So you pretty much, you apologize and say you're sorry and all that.
Right. And then that's when the guilt kicks in on what you did. So when the old brain is dominating a person, they might think, I knew this wasn't a big deal, but I couldn't stop reacting. If certain triggers repeated activities, or if certain triggers repeatedly activate the old brain, specific survival states get encoded. So like you kick into flight mode, or fight, or fawn, or freeze, or whatever mode that your survival, your adaptation is in. Each survival state comes with emotions, beliefs, body sensations, behavioral patterns. If the high brain isn't consistently integrated those states, they can start to feel separate. That's fragmentation. In simple language, not different people, different survival states. So fragmentation can happen when your nervous system has learned different survival states for different situations. When a cue feels threatening, your body can shift into a specific state: fight, flight, freeze, or shutdown. Before you have time to think, each state comes with its own emotions, its own beliefs, and its own behaviors, so you can feel like different versions of yourself. That doesn't mean that you're broken. It means that your nervous system organized itself to survive. When the nervous system stays in survival mode for long periods of time, it becomes harder for the thinking brain and the emotional brain to communicate with each other. Integration starts when you notice this shift. You regulate the body and you can reconnect the thinking. I don't know why I'm struggling to talk again. Now that we understand...
Because you say big words, even the dictionary doesn't understand.
Oh, sure it does.
Or most people. Me.
Well, thank you, I think. So now that we understand what fragmentation is and why the nervous system creates these different survival states, the next question becomes, how do we bring those parts back together? So a lot of people jump straight to the idea of integration. They hear things like, heal your parts, or become whole again. But there's something important that we have to understand first. Integration cannot happen in a dysregulated state. It can't be achieved because the nervous system is fighting it. So if your body still believes that it's in danger, your survival system stays in control. And when the survival system is running the show, the thinking brain doesn't have enough access to process experiences or reconnect the separated pieces. This is why regulation comes first, and this is why we're trying to learn about it. Regulation is what helps the nervous system move out of survival mode and back into a state where the brain and the body can communicate again. And once that happens, integration can begin. Integration can't happen in a dysregulated nervous system. Regulation helps the thinking brain come back online so the body begins to feel safe again. Integration means parts communicate again. They talk to each other. Emotions and logic connect. Nervous systems become flexible. People often think that integration begins with processing trauma. It usually doesn't. Integration begins with regulation and awareness. And I think for me, that was the issue when I was in counseling. Excuse me. I can talk to you about how hurt I was that I didn't have a dad or this or that until I'm blue in the face. That does not take that away. I mean, okay, so a little bit might shave off a couple layers of hurt, but it doesn't really fix those feelings. It doesn't really help me to learn how to cope with that loss. So the nervous system has to feel safe enough for different experiences to reconnect.
So drinking a 12-pack does not get rid of my dad issues. Or how big of an, excuse my language, an asshole he is.
Oh boy.
Damn, Mountain Dew, you failed me.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mountain Dew is not gonna get you there, and neither is drinking or getting high or anything else like this, because that's just gonna contribute to other problems. So now you're trading other problems for other problems, and before you know it, you'll have a pile of shit that you don't want. So that's not the way to go.
So coffee isn't it either?
No.
Another thing that lets me down.
The process starts with 3 things. Before the brain can reconnect fragmented experiences, the body has to move out of survival mode. This is key. This is what's going to do it. This doesn't mean someone has to feel perfectly calm all the time. It means that the nervous system begins learning that it can move between states again. This can begin to, things like slowing breathing, grounding exercises, movement, therapy, safe relationships, learning to notice body sensations. And I know that's really boring to stand here and be like, okay, count to 10, notice 5 things in the room, somatic experiences, things like that. That can get really boring, but it's crucial. And unfortunately, we have to do it to get into a better state. This is the key. These practices help bring the prefrontal cortex back online so thinking and emotional systems can communicate again. The next step is recognizing when different survival states are activated. So instead of going, I'm irrational, you begin to recognize that your nervous system is activated. For an example, someone might notice right now I'm in a shutdown state. My body just shifted into flight mode. This reaction feels younger than the situation. That awareness alone starts reconnecting parts of experience. Integration continues when experiences become story instead of raw reaction. When the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex begin organizing memory.
You're the only one who can say hippocampus. My lord, in my head it was hippopotamus.
I had a lot of practice. I've had a lot of practice. You gotta remember, I didn't just start looking at this yesterday.
Yes, but geez.
A lot of practice, baby.
Yeah, hippo something. That's where I'm at.
The brain can place events in time. So instead of this is happening again, the brain can recognize that was then, this is now. The shift reduces the intensity of the survival response. Integration doesn't mean someone never gets triggered. Unfortunately, that's always going to be a thing. That's when I was talking about coaching myself. It means that they can stay present during emotions and understand where reactions come from, regulate their body more quickly, feel more consistent across the situation. Your nervous system becomes more flexible and it becomes more coordinated. Integration begins when the nervous system learns that it doesn't have to stay in survival mode all the time. The first step isn't forcing parts of yourself together. It's learning to regulate your body and notice when different survival states are activated. When regulation increases, the thinking brain and the emotional brain can start communicating again. Over time, experiences that once felt separate begin to make sense as part of the same story. As the nervous system becomes more regulated, experiences that once felt overwhelming can begin to make sense in a new way. Memories that once triggered survival reactions can gradually become part of a coherent story rather than something the body must relive. So regulation simply means helping the body move out of survival mode and back into a state where it feels safe enough to think, feel, and process experiences. When we're dysregulated, the brain's survival system takes over, and the thinking part of the brain has less access. But when the nervous system becomes more regulated, those systems can communicate again. So the body can feel emotions without becoming overwhelmed, and the thinking brain can stay online. That's what creates the conditions where integration becomes possible. So moving towards integration usually starts with small things that help the nervous system feel safe enough to reconnect experiences. Integration begins with regulation when the body learns that it can move out of survival mode. The thinking brain and the emotional brain can communicate again. Another step is learning to notice when different survival states are activated. Instead of judging ourselves for a reaction, we begin to recognize that the nervous system and what it's doing. The nervous system is doing, X, Y, and Z. Integration also happens in safe relationships. So when we experience safety with other people, the nervous system learns that it doesn't have to stay organized around survival. So remember, in dysregulation, your reactions aren't irrational, they're protective. Integration doesn't mean that you're getting rid of yourself. It means that you're helping your brain communicate again. And as we wrap up today, I want you to remember something very important. Fragmentation is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that your nervous system adapted to survive experiences that felt overwhelming at the time. Those different parts of you, the ones that react, shut down, protect, or push forward, developed for a reason. They were trying to keep you safe. So the worst thing that you can do when you get upset, let's use anger again. So you're pissed off.
Yep.
Then you start, when you get out of that, when you start, calming down and having a little more composure, you start evaluating your feelings. Oh, well, I shouldn't have felt like that. I was so angry and I shouldn't access those feelings, and how dare I feel that way or have that thought. A shrink once told me, speaking about shrinks, a shrink once told me, right? She said, it's fine and dandy if in your head, you bust somebody in the mouth. It's okay to feel that way or think that, or even like you did it in your head. It's just not okay for you to actually do it, if that makes any sense. So healing doesn't mean...
So your shrink is telling you to punch things.
No, she said...
What a
no,
nice person.
No, she said it's okay to think that way. It's just not okay to react that way.
So hit the pillow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hit a pillow.
So healing doesn't mean getting rid of these parts. It means learning how to regulate your nervous system so that these parts can begin communicating again. And I know I've said that 20,000 times, but it's imperative that you remember that. Integration isn't about becoming somebody new. It's about reconnecting the pieces of who you've always been. That process begins with awareness, patience, and regulation. So don't beat on yourself for having a feeling or emotion, because two things happen. A, your nervous system stays in flight because you're hyping yourself up, so to speak. Second thing that develops is, oh, I shouldn't have thought that way. I shouldn't have had those feelings. Maybe you were raised that anger was not okay. That creates shame. That keeps the nervous system in high alert. It keeps you dysregulated. That's not a cure. You don't want to do that. You want to just coherently think, okay, this is how I felt about this. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I felt, this way. I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, but I didn't. Yay for me. So now we can move forward. We don't shame ourselves. We don't judge ourselves, because that keeps us in dysregulation. We evaluate why we felt that way, what triggered us to that point. And then if it happens again, we can start, getting to where that trigger doesn't upset us so much. So it's about being honest with yourself that you had those thoughts, you had those feelings. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. You're organized around survival, and with time, safety, and regulation, understanding that organization can begin to shift toward connection and coherence. This is key. In the next episode, we'll go deeper into how regulation works and how people can begin strengthening these skills. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with a simple question you might carry with you this week. When you notice a reaction that surprises you, maybe you shut down, get overwhelmed, or feel suddenly angry, see if you can pause. Ask yourself, what part of me might be trying to protect me right now? Sometimes the small moment of curiosity is the first step towards integration. And if anything we talked about today feels familiar, remember that these patterns developed for a reason. There's a reason that you're here. Your nervous system was trying to protect you, with the tools that it had at the time. Thank you for tuning in to Unapologetically Reborn. This is where survival mode ends and choices begin.
And your book.
Hi, my name is Alicia Lynch. You might recognize me from Unapologetically Reborn. We have been discussing survival mode in our podcast, fragmentation, regulation, dysregulation, basically survival mode. We do have free workbooks available on our website, www.unapologeticallyreborn.com, for various episodes for self-reflection, journaling, and things to ask yourself. However, if you want a deeper dive into our conversations, things that we've been discussing, I just want to throw it out there that there is a book that I wrote. It's called Survival Mode. And inside of it is various exercises to come back to regulation, what regulation is, what it involves, why it occurs. Like I said, how to get out of it, different various exercises for you to do. It's called Survival Mode. Once again, you can find it on Kindle or you can purchase it on Amazon. If you're interested, that's where you find it. If not, you don't have to read it. It's for the people that want a deeper dive and to delve into what we've been discussing in our podcast. Thank you very much for listening to Unapologetically Reborn. This means the world to us. Hope you're having a great day. See you next time.